in 1941, actually, during the summer, the Germans, with Operation Barbarossa, invaded the Soviet Union, and Volhynia being a border region, the strike came directly at Volhynia, and for the first few weeks, even months, the Red Army was in disarray, retreating very quickly towards Moscow. So there wasn't a lot of heavy fighting in the region. Instead, the Germans came in, and in the eyes of the Ukrainians, it looked like a crushing defeat for the Red Army. They believed that now the Germans had come in to save them from both the Soviets and the Poles and give them Ukrainian independence. This was what the leader of the Ukrainian Organization of Nationalists, Stepan Bandera, thought. This is also what many of the key figures in Ukrainian public life believed, and therefore they sided very early on, immediately practically, with the invading Germans in a similar fashion as we could have, as was seen in the Baltic states, in slightly different circumstances also in Finland, with Finland joining in the so-called continuation war against the Soviet Union in 1941, after first having been attacked in the Winter War by the Soviet Union in 1939. So there was this, you could say, line of collaboration. Maybe for Finland it could be too strong of a word, but for the Baltic states and for Ukraine, that is the reality. Many of them signed up for various volunteer formations to fight along the Wehrmacht against the Red Army. However, quickly Adolf Hitler, he had this, if we look at it from a purely military and political point of view, he had this flaw in his character, that instead of being a good strategic mastermind that was able to simply cheat people for a while and promise them that, yes, I will give you autonomy as long as you fill up my ranks in large numbers, of course you'll get your independent state. And then years later you could naturally being the senior partner in such a cooperation, you could simply go back on your words. But Adolf Hitler, with his pure biological racism, he thought it would be denigrating for the Germans to accept an independent Ukrainian state. So he brushed the Ukrainians off very early on and sent the leader of this movement, Stepan Bandera, to a concentration camp in Germany. So many of the Ukrainians became disillusioned with the Germans. Nevertheless, they were also viewed as a good tool for receiving military training. So a lot of these Ukrainians, they would join various German formations. These various police battalions, for example, exceeded in brutality during the Holocaust. And they were also inspired by it. They saw that mass murder was used by a victorious state as a tool for political goals and ethnic cleansing. So they did, you could say they did learn from that in a way. And later in 1943, during the spring, they started attacking Polish villages in Volhynia. The first case is taking place in February 1943, with dozens and hundreds of Polish civilians slaughtered in this repetition of the Holocaust in a way. It was the same genocidal practices that came into play. And then it all culminated during the summer of 1943 in Volhynia, with the so-called Bloody Sunday on July 11th being the climax of this frenzy, with more than 100 Polish villages being attacked across the region, and probably somewhere along 10 to 15,000 Poles killed in a single day. Later on, these massacres would move from Volhynia to Galicia. However, with the Poles forming a larger percentage of the population there, they didn't take on as much or the death toll wasn't as high, even though it was very high in Galicia as well, probably well over 30,000. Volhynia being a smaller, lesser populated region and with a smaller Polish population, so the percentage of Poles killed in Volhynia was much higher than in Galicia.
Adam, as usual, the clock in the corner of the room has defeated us. I'm going to have to ask you to pause there, but we will pick it up next time. I've had to ask Adam to pause, but fear not, if you join us next time on Poland Daily History, as we hope you will, we'll pick up the story. Until then, thank you very much for watching.